Nietzsche, a man far wiser than I, cautioned that we should consider every day lost on which we have not danced at least once. And it's been said that dance is the hidden language of the soul. With that in mind, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce you to Ms. Sheena Annales, the brainchild, driving force, and inspiration behind Arch Ballet, arguably the most innovative and energized contemporary ballet company New York has ever seen. At 25 years old, Sheena has exceeded all expectations and wowed both the dance industry and audiences by channeling her experience as a ballet dancer into the realm of choreography in order to give life to a mesmerizing ballet repertoire that is creative, thought-provoking, and a true breath of fresh air in the world of ballet, where often innovation is secondary to tradition. Sheena's unique vision, unstoppable drive, and boundless talent and propelling Arch Ballet to the forefront of the industry, and I'm excited to be a bystander watching her reach new heights and invite you all along on this journey. Sheena, welcome to the National Arts Club, an institution that itself needs no introduction and has long been at the forefront of fostering artistic ventures and plays an integral role in connecting lovers of art and creators of art. On behalf of everyone in the room, we look forward to hearing from you, Sheena. Please welcome on stage.
Thank you, Abishan and Charlotte. I'm thrilled to be here this evening with you all. I started Arch Contemporary Ballet 4 years ago when I was 21, and I had a very bold vision to create a ballet company with new ballet, new music, and new ideas for audiences worldwide. With that, I'm creating new choreography with different lines and body images than what a traditional ballet company would do. I'm contributing new music to the world also with our unique process for creating new work. And I'm using ideas that resonate to today's audiences. In order to keep art alive, we need to speak the same language as the audience we see in front of us today. In order for them to understand what we're doing or to allow them to question new ideas, we have to, again, speak the same language. With that, we use a lot of technology. I use ideas based on real life today, relationships today, and things of that nature. With that in mind, I have created this unique company, and I have 10 dancers. And with that, we create some really, really great work. Starting with our process, we create everything in silence first, which is not traditional for ballet companies. Usually, a choreographer picks a piece of music, and they're inspired by that, and movement comes from the music. In my case, I create everything in silence, so the dancers have no idea what the music is going to sound like. They're going off of each other's rhythms. That gives me a chance to put choreography at the forefront. I can create the pace, I can create how long I want that extension to be up in the air. I can slow things down to more reconcile with what the emotion is of the piece. And it allows me to really take control of the movement. By isolating these different sections, I'm really able to convey the message that I'm looking to convey. From there, we bring in a composer. They're all 21st century composers, so again, new ballet, new music. And they're given a video of the work, and they create music specifically to the movement. So the dancers don't change what they're doing. Instead, the music is created to them. So that way when the music is put to it, it's the same and it becomes something else. The dancers can now delve into more of what the music is portraying. And this process, again, is very much not seen in the ballet world. So normally when dancers first come to me, they're like, what are you doing? You are crazy. I don't know how to do this. So it takes a while for dancers to adjust because they spent 20, 25 years training on their ears, using music to guide them to move. So now they have to be in tune with their body, and they're using that to move. So with that in mind, I'm going to introduce you to one of my dancers, Tori. She's going to show you a little piece of what we're going to be showing later, which is replica, and she's going to show you in silence first. So in the studio, this is what she would be doing. She wouldn't be using the music. We would just solely be working with the movement. Tori? So as you can see, she still has the same conviction as if there was music. A lot of our work is based on different shapes. So you'll see a lot of different circles and squares, twisted body. Thank you, Tori. So that is what we would be doing in the studio. After that, we bring in the composer, they create a score to it, and it turns into something completely different. So with this in mind, I have created this technique and this process because I feel like you can't expect the next Bach, the next Balanchine, the next Van Gogh to come to life if we're not giving them opportunity to create something new. That was the inspiration behind it. If the same musicians keep playing the same music, how are we supposed to find the next generation of these greats? And so that's the idea behind this entire process. A lot of people think that change is uncomfortable, but that's where art is truly found, is once you step outside of that comfort zone. So that's where I'm taking these dancers, it's where I'm taking the audience, it's where I'm taking composers, because they're not used to working that way either. So it's a completely different process, and that's how it all starts. The piece that we'll be displaying today is Replica. I created it in November of 2016. It's now had some pretty great reviews, thankfully. And it's based on the idea that everything this day and age can be replicated, it can be imitated, and just over and over, things are being reproduced, whether it's a version of yourself on social media, whether it's through 3D printing and be able to take a 2D image and creating it into a million different 3D printing objects. It's all of those things, and so that's the idea behind this piece, and that's where Replica came from. In this piece, the costumes are 3D printed with a designer, Merv Oztunel, which I will get into a little bit later. And we use 3D motion projection to create a 4D illusion on stage. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that. That's the thing with technology. It doesn't always work the way you want it to. If you don't mind, I'm just going to replay that for you. 1 second. Let's hope this one works. There we go. Well, maybe we'll come back to that. The test run worked great, I promise. Anywho, so this is kind of the idea behind it. As you can see, the dancers are replicated more than one time. So it shoots back about 5 or 6 times. How we did this was using 3D motion projection, which uses sensors to trace the dancers' bodies. Then we connected them to a video camera to project back onto the background, which allowed it to replicate upwards. So with that idea, we're creating this illusion of 4D. So 4D is adding the element of time, which is the music. So that's what we were trying to create in this vision for the piece. And with this collaboration, so we used Matthew A.C. Cohen, who is actually one of our resident composers. It's an EDM score, as you could hear a little bit of, but we'll go back to that video. And he did this piece with the idea of relating to an audience of this age. So we used EDM music and 3D motion projection, and we're creating something that resonates to everyone in the audience now. The 3D printed neck pieces that you see here were done by Merv Ostamel. She actually lives in Israel. The collaboration started with a conversation with Noah Raviv, who recently had an exhibit at Machina Manis at the Met. We began talking about the idea that everything is replicated, and she had the same perspective as I did. So we started thinking, how can we relate this to a new 3D printed piece? So we came up with this collarbone as kind of like a safety, or the collarbone is considered like the beauty bone. So for my inspiration, I was a little inspired by how everyone is posting their newest, latest, beautiful images on social media, and how that's replicating different forms of themselves. So that's kind of why we put it on the collarbone. It's got like a simple meaning, kind of behind the radar, but I kind of like that kind of thing. And that's why we did that. And how we collaborated was, we always used FaceTime, because she lives in Israel. She never made it out to New York, unfortunately. But, so when Noah was talking to me about this piece, she also lived in Israel. And then she passed me on to her friend to actually build the model. So Merv built this model for us, and from there we took the file, which is called a CAD. 3D printing uses a different kind of file, like a JPEG, or etc. It's called a CAD. And you take that to a 3D printer. And in a 3D printer, how that works is basically they take the image, they slice it into 1,000,000 layers, which is called slicing. It's one of the processes for that. They put it in the machine and it builds it with the slices. So basically, like an inkjet printer, how it prints one layer, it's going to print 1,000,000 layers to create this product. And so that's how those necklaces came about. Some of the other technology works that we've done includes this one. This is one of my most recent. It's called Point in Motion. And it uses a 4K ink and water backdrop. And the poles that you see here, this is a behind the scenes video, so excuse the moving. But the poles that you see there are actually being controlled from the back. It's an app that's put inside of the poles. And the poles are basically motion sensors that generate music. So the dancers would move in front of them, and then it would create music. So that's kind of how that worked as well. So that's another form of technology that we used, not just in Replica. But I'm going to try and go back to that original video, if you don't mind. We're just going to try this one more time. So from this, I'm actually in the back. You can't see me because I'm backstage, but there is if you don't mind, I'm just going to do something really ugly to get this to work for you. And this should do it. Okay, well, we're going to give up on that. Sorry about that. That's one of the issues with technology. One moment it works, and the next minute it doesn't. Happens on stage, happens on this stage. But that's how Replica was formed, and this is what I'm doing with these new ballets, is creating something new and inventive. And the impact of using technology in an art form that's so rooted in tradition really brings like a spectacle to it. You know, it's something new. I'm encouraging new audiences to come see us. Someone who'd never see ballet who may be interested in technology, or someone who loves the apps on their phones, or etc., will come and see this art form because it's relating to them as well. So we're creating new audiences, and that's kind of the entire idea behind it. And we hope that this will carry and evolve ballet into the next generation and the next century. So thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. We'll be right over here. So I guess we'll open the floor.
Yes. So there's a lot in the news about a lack of women in choreography. What is your experience as a female choreographer?
Well, that is very much true. It's even more rare to see a woman artistic director. I'm actually one of the very few. And I'm even more few one for starting a ballet company from the ground up, not just taking over the role. I think that there's a lot of new opportunity on the rise, but I think a lot of the attention is brought to choreographers who are in larger institutions, which don't necessarily correlate to being choreographers. You see a lot of principal dancers or quarter ballet dancers starting to delve into choreography, but they're getting a lot of attention at not the right time. I think that they need to grow as choreographers first and then get the exposure. I think that they're being exposed too soon, and you see works that maybe are not ready to be seen. With my experience, I've been pretty lucky. I've gotten a lot of great feedback and a lot of great news, which is wonderful, but I think funding is definitely something that's lacking, or commissions is lacking from women choreographers. But that's why we need to engage with an audience like this, so they can help us bridge that gap. So, thank you. Yes.
So this is more for the dancer. I was just curious how you felt as a dancer dancing without the music, and then there are two parts to the question, and then how you sort of felt once the music was added, how that changed the dance, and then third part is the technology. Do you feel that affects the way you do the dance, or is that just sort of a background add?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. So, to address the first part of the question, dancing without music is a very unique experience. I started dancing with Sheena 3 years ago. So, by this time, I've become accustomed to the way that Sheena works. But I will say that when I first started, dancing without music was a very difficult task, because we're taught from the time that we're 3 years old in baby ballet classes to, skip on the music, and that's how you dance. But I really love that Sheena has the idea to create dance without music first. I think it really puts the dancing before the music, although they're both equally important art forms. When you are in a ballet company, you want the dance to be at the forefront. And I think that the way that Sheena works is really the way that dance should be heading right now, so we can make sure that dance always remains the most important part of a ballet company. Oh, and the technology, that's right, you also asked about the technology. Dancing with the different technology is always an interesting experience. We try to rehearse as much as we can with the technology, but sometimes that's not always an option depending on where our rehearsal space is. Learning to dance with the various technologies is definitely a learning curve. We just have to, it's a lot of trial and error. But we always try to maintain the same intention that we have without music and without the technology as we do with the music and with the technology. And most of the time, the music and the technology can help us increase that intensity that we have with the dancing.
How do you come up with new ideas and themes for your ballets? What inspires you?
I think that I'm really inspired by things that I just see every day. I always feel like I have a handful of ballets in my pocket of new things that I want to do. This ballet was created because I literally was walking down the street and I saw 4 girls wearing the same outfit, like all in a row, and I thought the concept of clothes replicating like that was so interesting, and it kind of delved me into identities replicating and where society is going in terms of that. So that's how that was inspired. Point in Motion, which was the one with the ink and water, was actually, it came about when I saw this video online of, I have a program for kids with autism, and it was them using music therapy to speak. And that ballet is actually about how music goes through different lobes of your brain and helps children with autism communicate or learn new things. So that's how that was created. I have, actually this is going to sound very wild, but Tori's going to know what I'm talking about. In 2018, I'm doing a ballet with dogs. We were at Best Buy. We were literally at Best Buy during a premiere of a new show called Innate Primrose, which will also be performing in November. And there was a dog sitting outside of Best Buy. She said, "Let's take it back to the theater." And I was like, "Oh, I wish." And a few hours later, like my brain just started turning, and I had this wonderful idea of just imagining like 9 dogs all lined up, like on all fours, sitting straight up, and dancers weaving in between them. And when they do like certain movements or they move a certain way, the dogs will move like all simultaneously in one move. And then I started playing on the concept of Queen Elizabeth and how she used hunting dogs. So then the costumes came about. It's pretty wild how I create things. Sometimes my dancers are really scared. I was like, I have an idea.
Yes, when Sheena told me about this idea for the dog ballet,
It's gonna be cool.
I admit I was, well, first I laughed. I thought she was joking, but Sheena never jokes about things like this, as many learn quickly. When Sheena has an idea, she goes full force with it. So we're really excited about this new ballet that we'll be doing with service dogs, and we think it's going to be a really fun experience. It's going to be a lot of challenges to overcome, but it's going to be a really great end product, as it always is with Sheena.
Yeah, so that's kind of some of my crazier pieces.
Where are you getting the dogs from? Are they trained dog dancers?
So again, so I have a program for kids with autism, and I try to relate things back to what we're doing. And they have programs for kids with autism with service dogs. So there's a big service dog autism farm in Kentucky. So yeah, this is like way later in 2018. We have much more upcoming shows that are a little less erotic than that. So definitely check those out. But yeah, I mean, with these ballets, it usually takes about 6 months to a year to really put them into fruition. Replica took me almost 8 months to gather the collaborations, to gather the sponsorship for 3D printing, the technology behind the 3D motion. It's a lot of educating yourself. I have to educate myself about all these new things, learn how it's used, because I didn't know anything about 3D printing before I started, or 3D motion projection. And in order to use it, you have to go to the experts and get their opinions and etc. So it takes a long time to create ballet. So again, handful in my pocket. But yeah, yes.
I was wondering which choreographer do you admire, if you admire, and how do you reconciliate that sometimes technology can isolate us? How do you integrate that into your?
Into a ballet? So a lot of people actually ask me who inspires me as a choreographer, and I honestly don't emulate anyone, so it's really hard to say. When I was 14, I worked with a very inspirational choreographer, Wayne McGregor. I was very lucky to have worked with him, and he taught me a lot about finding your own self within your choreography. So I really don't look at other choreographers as, oh, I want to do something like them. But I definitely see choreographers and I'm like, oh, I would like to achieve what you're achieving. But I think that the way that I work and the process that I'm using is so different than any other ballet choreographer. It's really hard to be like, oh, I'm doing what you're doing. And I don't want to be like that either. I have my own vocabulary, and the more you come to my shows, the more you see like what the vocabulary is. So like with any dance technique, there's, classic, iconic movement and items, and even through like different reviews, they point it out all the time. I have a very like serpentine movement mixed with sharp. It's like sharp and fluid movements. So I'm kind of creating my own style, and I like it, so we'll see where it goes. To answer your second question, to create a ballet, if I thought that technology was isolating, I'll email you that answer. Does that sound good? I will. My gears turn. If you tell me something, my gears definitely do turn, but it just takes a while for me to come up with like an answer-worthy response to that. Yes.
Yeah, so you talked about
Yes, actually, I do. The whole idea behind my company is to bring new 21st century audiences in. So audiences in tech, audiences in ballet, in visual art, in the autistic community. We did a deaf-friendly show. I used sign language. Actually, in the ballet, the dancers were signing to bring in a new deaf audience to us. I have brought in mathematicians, I've brought in many different audiences. That's my whole idea, is that everyone can enjoy our work. And I don't want to limit anyone to seeing us by being too niche on something. I want every piece to really resonate to a new audience. And yes, we do use technology to deliver this sometimes. Like the last piece I was showing you, point in motion, that uses the axe in the poles. So that was inspired by the autistic community, and we used the app that was actually in the poles is actually a music therapy app for kids with autism. We just manipulated it to use it for a different purpose. So I do bring awareness to a lot of my pieces, but I try to seamlessly integrate new things. Also, not every piece that I use uses technology. A lot of them do, but some of them don't. Like a piece I'm doing in November, or actually it does because it uses laser lights. Innate Primrose. It does. A lot of them do. I take it back. But it's a very heavy piano score, and then it's a light beam laser shadow art installation that the dancers are dancing through. So it's a little bit more simple, I would say. The technology isn't as evasive. It's not as much as a process. We just have a light artist come in and they create the space for us. Yes?
Sort of piggybacking a little bit on that question. I've never seen a production, but might there be an opportunity for audience engagement with the dancers or with the environment in real time? For instance, with an app or something on a smartphone that could maybe, like the dog, cause a reaction on stage or with movement.
You mean like audience participation?
Yes.
I've never done a piece with audience participation. Maybe it's something that I'll do in the future. It's not something that I see like right now in my forefront. I think a lot of that has to do with the trial and error of our work. With using technology, it's very difficult, especially because this technology isn't designed for dance. We're manipulating it to create this effect for dance. So we spend a lot of hours in the theater like, move it to the left, or is this plugged in right, or the sensors aren't gauging. For example, with one of the pieces, the lighting was too high, so the sensors couldn't graph where the dancers were, so we had to turn the lighting down. So with audience participation, that'd be a tough one. If too many people are using it, it may not work, or etc. So it's definitely something that would need a lot of test prep to do, which may take a lot longer than I anticipate right now. But maybe one day, I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know. Yes?
Yeah, since music isn't providing the impulse for your choreography, right? Where is the rhythmic or expressive drive and like logic and motivation coming from? And how do you kind of formulate the ideas in the dance, aside from the theme that you're working with, when you don't have music? What is creating that for you?
So you mean like the moves?
Yeah, the moves.
So for the actual dance movement, again, I think I have a very strong vocabulary now as I've grown as a choreographer. A lot of it stems from shapes, I was kind of explaining earlier when Tori was dancing. A lot of it comes from, I get inspiration from buildings. Like the way you look at something, I may see completely different. Like for example, like this stand. You just see a stand. But for me, I see like, that's a dancer bending. Here, this is going to be embarrassing, but I'm just going to show you. So, you see this stand. For for me, we do a lot of C curves in our movement. So for me, I see something more like this, shaping it. Or I see something more like this, with a leg. But mostly, it's just using shapes and creating those shapes with your body. There's a lot of twists and turns. My favorite is doing partner work. I love pas-de-deux work. I kind of am a novelist when it comes to pas-de-deux in a lot of my pieces. And I love creating shapes with it. Like if I were to do a pas-de-deux with this stand, which I guess is a little hard to demonstrate, but I would see like one dancer twisted this way and the male dancer lifting her with her leg up. I know that doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to stop there. But I see objects a little bit differently. So when I'm walking down the street, I'm like, oh, that'd be a really cool dance move, or etc. So yeah, geometric shapes.
Right, and I think also, like our process with technology, where there's a lot of trial and error, Sheena's entire choreographic process is a lot of trial and error. Every rehearsal, like umpteen times per rehearsal, Sheena will say, is it possible for you to fly around the room and land on your head? And then you say, well, I can try, but I can't promise you anything. So we do a lot of asking questions from Sheena. Sheena says, I have this vision and I want you to figure out how you can make that possible. So we try for hours at a time trying to get the right vision and the right feeling that Sheena wants. So there is a lot of inspiration that comes from me and my coworkers, where we will make a shape and Sheena will manipulate us a little bit and try and get into the perfect shape and the perfect movement that she wants for the piece.
Yeah, I do honestly say that all the time. I have this philosophy, if I've seen it before, then we're not doing it. So, like if I've seen that move before, it is scrap, like I'm not doing it. And I say that a lot too, trial and error. We try a million things, and I'd say about 15% actually stick.
Yes.
So it's a lot of that. Yes.
With the 3D, with the technology and the 3D sensors, I guess, piggybacking off of this question and point, could you remove the element of the composers, basically have the movements define music, changes, tempo?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not quite sure.
Sure. So you choreograph the piece without music,
Yes.
but you have the technology of 3D sensors. Could the movements of the dancers define the music?
Yes. In Replica, no, which is what's using the 3D piece is the first one, where unfortunately the video is a little glitchy. Hopefully I can replay that later. So that one uses the 3 motion sensors, and that was a composition that was created by Matthew, so that one already had music. But the second piece I showed you with the watercolor backdrop, that uses sensors. They're not 3D sensors, but they're motion sensors. So like the same one that's in your phone for like the Snapchat or Instagram face thing where you like move and it moves with you. Same thing. It uses that sensor, and that's creating the music. So with the app that we use is used for music therapy, and when you move in front of it, that's creating the sound. So that was the idea behind this. So in the clip I showed you, there was no music because they weren't in front of the sensors. But yeah, so those apps do create the music. Yes?
So one of the criticisms of ballet consistently is that it's inaccessible or that it's hard to access to people, throughout the world. But do you think technology has the opportunity to make it more accessible and approachable the same way that people now can take, music classes virtually or spin classes or anything virtually?
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially with this day and age with all of the Facebook Live, Instagram Live. You can go live on Vimeo as of yesterday. There's so many different things that you can be anywhere in the world and see. If someone's streaming it, you can see it. So yeah, I definitely think so. But I also think what's special about us is we're inviting these new audiences and we're inviting it to be accessible. We are creating new audiences in all kinds of fields: art, fashion, technology, music, dance, you name it. And also other communities such as the autism community, the deaf community, all of those things. So that's one of my big passions, is to make it an accessible company. That's actually in our mission statement. But yeah, that's kind of the whole idea behind using all these different collaborations. Yes.
I want you to talk about the collaboration process with if there's specific artists that are visual projection artists already that you how did you contact them, and what it's like working with them? They're new dancers. Do you have specific lighting artists that you know, and there's so many other elements.
I think the biggest part with working with other artists is learning how they communicate, because that's one of my biggest challenges. Is if you're going into a collaboration with a different field, you need to know their language, because they don't know your language. So in order to tell them what you want or what you're looking for, you have to be able to say, in their terms. So technically, you need to be right with the way you're delivering things and things like that. So that's the biggest thing I have for collaborating with other people, is learning what their industry language is. How I contact them, a lot of it is I'll see something and be inspired by it, and I'll reach out to them, and I've just been very lucky that they like me, so they'll work with us. But other times, I'll have to find someone, and I'll do a lot of research. A lot of my ballets require a lot of research just because of the different collaborations that we're doing. Yes.
This isn't a question, but I just wanted to commend you because I went to one of your ballets, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And I went and I saw the ballet, and it wasn't until afterwards you had said the composer didn't make the music until after you had done everything. And that I was shocked about that. It pulled me in. It made your dance so romantic to me. And I was there with the software engineer, and he said, "Oh, I love the lights. I love the technology." And I was like, I didn't even notice that. So I really want to commend you, because you just draw in so many different people, and we're all watching the same thing, but we're all receiving different inputs. So I just think that's amazing, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great about Sheena's work. I have so many different types of artistic friends, musicians to painters to, lighting artists, and everybody that comes to see one of Sheena's ballets comes out of the performance with a different perspective on what they thought was the coolest aspect of the performance, right? So it's really great that Sheena's able to create pieces with so many different elements that appeal to so many different types of audiences and so many different types of artists. I think Sheena's work really aims at bringing different artistic communities all together through dance, which is so important in this day and age.
Thanks. Yes.
I'm Charlotte, right? So I'm going to get myself a chance to ask the last question. And I hope everyone will continue to hang out afterwards and continue talking with the two of them. That's part of how we organize these events, is that there continues to be a more social conversation. Sometimes we like to ask questions one-on-one that we don't want to ask in front of the whole group. And I actually wanted to say, I think it's great the way that you've managed to bring so much of what I used to think about as backstage of dance to the forefront, because lighting and sound and the technologies that have been a part of that, and costume have always been a huge part of dance. But it's this thing that if you were involved in dance, it was backstage.
I think that it's to keep educating yourself. Work with as many people as you can, or work with one person and really learn from that person. I think with this new idea, like where I'm trying to take dance or where the entire society is going into the age of technology, it's important to know what's to come next so that you can still be surviving as an artist. You know, that's one thing, is art evolves and you want to be on the forefront of that. And that's one of, I don't know, Tori, what do you think that I would tell you?
Yes, I'm
Sorry, that's a tough question.
It is a
Got
tough
me.
question, but I will say this right now. Sheena is one of my most important mentors in my entire life. She is.
She has some other really important mentors, so I'm really happy to hear that.
Yes, Sheena is a very, very important person in my life. She has taught me through the rehearsal process to always, don't doubt your ideas. I think about this idea with the dogs. To anybody else, it would sound entirely ridiculous, but Sheena goes full force with everything she does, so that inspires me in so many ways to be able to chase my dreams and have Sheena ride along, I ride along Sheena as we chase this dream together. And Sheena is very careful about how she presents our company and how she presents her dancers, which I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. She never wants to do anything too tacky or too vulgar. It's all at a very, very tasteful level. And that's so important in this day and age with the rise of social media and how dancers are presented on social media.
You can't take it back, people. Once
Right.
it's on the internet, it never goes away.
Right. And so, Sheena has taught me so much about who I am as an artist and finding my own voice in her choreography. And also, as I start to begin my own choreographic process for, in my bedroom by myself, I take a lot of inspiration from Sheena's choreography and from her process. But I also take a lot of inspiration from her on the business side. She's always trying to make new connections and meet new people and appeal to different audiences. So Sheena has taught me so much as an artist and as a businesswoman and as a woman in general.
Thank you. Yeah, so please join us.
So I was going to say, so please continue to ask questions directly, but just because, since we ended on a business note, I'm just going to go ahead and give a big old heavy plug. You can find Arch Ballet on Instagram at Arch Ballet, and you should follow them so you know what's coming up. In the back, there are some flyers, but I will just mention there's a couple events that they're doing coming up. They have 2 fall performances that you can check out, one coming up on November 17th, and then there's one, where's this world premiere one happening?
So there's a world premiere preview at City Center on November 1st. It's a preview of my new piece, Between the Lines, and the full performance is on November 17th and 18th at our resident theater, the Sheen Center.
And all of that, obviously, you would find out if you follow them on social media, and you will know that if you follow them on social media, everything that they put there, they mean to have up there and have it be permanent. So you don't have to worry about that. So please, if you would join me in thanking Sheena and her dancers.